Well, welcome everybody to the first of our summer series of role model speakers. This is going to be a little bit of a fireside chat with an influential person who I know, will inspire you with his life story. And in the past, I was the host of these, and I thought we could do a lot better than that. So we've recruited a former intern, a two-time former intern, Sarima Marshall, who is going to be the host this year. So I'm going to introduce Sarima briefly, and then I'm going to talk about our speaker, and then we're going to go right into a short video clip. So I just want to thank Sarima for agreeing to be our host for this series. Sarima is a remarkable young woman. She is a rising senior at Emory University in Atlanta. She previously worked last year with a New Jersey organization called HTTV, which is a local area television production studio. The year before that, she worked with another organization in New Jersey called Discovery Orchestra. Did I get that right, Sarima? Yes. And so she knows firsthand what it's like to be in the shoes of our interns. Very recently, she had a short internship in France at the Cannes Film Festival. She is a media and television and film major at Emory, and she's pursuing media studies. So we're really, really lucky to have her in this capacity. It's right up her alley. I've seen her other on-screen work, and she's amazing. So thank you for agreeing to do this, Sarima. So pivot briefly to Bill Tipacti. So Bill, I'm not going to give you his bio. We sent that out in advance, but I want to tell you he is a remarkable human being who has had his own interesting life adventure, relocating to a couple different countries before coming to New Jersey. He grew up in Kearney, New Jersey after he immigrated here, and has spent most of his career in the newsroom working for Univision. But over the last couple of years, I won't spoil it, but he shifted to being the leading the community engagement efforts for Univision, and he's doing truly remarkable work. So I guess, Bill, if you could tee up the video and then and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it's after 12 noon. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Tipacti. I'm the Director of Community Affairs for Univision. I oversee all the community efforts here in New York. I also oversee some other markets, including DC, Philly, Atlanta, and Raleigh. My journey is like every other journey of an immigrant. I arrived into this country in 1985 with my family, full of hopes, full of dreams, not knowing what was going to decades later be my current life, right? Um, I think I'm going to start from the very beginning before I tee up the video. And the very beginning starts when I arrived here in the United States, coming from a family that struggled, and that's why we moved here. And when we moved here, I joined the Kearney school district as an eighth grade student. And one of the challenges as soon as you run into the school is, you need to be able to assimilate the culture, and you need to be able to, talk to friends and to classmates, but the language was a barrier. I remember the first day my dad dropped me off at school. It was 8 a.m. He dropped us off, me, my brother, my sister, and he dropped us off in front of the school, and he said, "All right, that's your school. Have a good day." That was the first day of school. And I walked into Washington School there in Kearney, and I just walked into the very first door that I saw open, and it happened to be a classroom. It wasn't the classroom I was assigned to, and the teacher was speaking to me, and I didn't understand one word, and he finally asked, "Hey, does anybody speak Spanish here? Can you please help us translate?" And then that's when they told me, "You're in the wrong classroom. This is fifth grade. You're supposed to be in eighth grade, blah, blah." That was my welcoming to the school. Then I moved on to high school, and through all this ordeal, I saw my dad work really hard, and he was working three jobs, and he would leave the house very early and come back very late. And I saw that, that it's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to do. I mean, physically, I'm not going to be able to work up really early and come back home late. So I said, I want to make sure that I don't do that. And the only way I can imagine not doing that is going to college. So as I started my high school career, I want to make sure that I started on a good foot. I started it well, right? So freshman year came along, sophomore year came along, and then it was time to meet your guidance counselor. And we went to the guidance counselor, and I said, "Sir, I'd like to be able to go to college. Could you help me build a college plan?" And I remember sitting there, and he looked at me and he said, "Son, don't bother. You're not cut out for college. You're only gonna fail." And I just looked at him and I said, "Thank you for your time." And then I just walked away. And I said, "You know what? That is his philosophy. That is his suggestion, his advice. I'm not gonna take it." I built my own college path. I graduated high school. I graduated college. I went to Seton Hall, and then right away I worked at Seton Hall. I mean, I worked at Univision right out of college. I was hired at Univision. That was 1995. When I first started working at Univision, it wasn't something that I actually dreamt of. I was in college, and and this is what I tell everybody, especially folks who are in college and who are about to do internships. Internships are extremely important because it's a window, an opportunity to be able to actually see that what you selected, that career that you selected is actually what you want to do. When I was going to college, my first couple of years, I was studying public relations, and I thought that was going to be my career until I reached Univision. And I remember walking into the newsroom, and I first met the legendary anchor Rafael Pineda, and he came in and he greeted me, and he said with that anchor voice, "Buenas tardes," and I was like, "Oh my God, I see you every day. How are you?" And he says, "Welcome to Univision." And that's when I said, "You know what? I got to change everything. I want to study journalism." And that's what I did. I went back to school. I changed my major, and I started communications and journalism, and I wanted to make sure I turn into a journalist. Early on in my career in journalism, I knew that the breaking stories was not going to be the hit. I needed to do something more. Everything that I've done in my life, and this is something that from my upbringing, it's like you need to make sure that you excel at whatever you do. You're going to be a part of the cleaning facility, you need to be the best at it. You need to be a soccer player, you need to be the best at it. You're gonna go to a newsroom and you're gonna be at the entry level position in a newsroom, you need to be the best at it. So I excelled right away. I make sure I brought in the breaking stories, the exclusive stories, and things like that. But I was yearning for something else, right? And it wasn't until one day things changed for me. And I'm gonna set up the video for a little bit, but it was one of those really busy days in the newsroom. I was working at the assignment desk. I was managing the assignment desk, and the phone would just ring off the hook and just ring and ring and ring. And I really didn't like that because my philosophy is that every time somebody calls in the newsroom is because there's a great story on the other side of the phone. And I picked up the phone and I said, "Noticias." And the woman on the other end says, "Oh my God, thanks for answering. Oh, I've been calling you for so long. Thanks for answering. Listen, I have something to ask you. You guys could maybe could turn it into a story. I need to meet Romeo Santos." If you guys don't know, Romeo Santos is this great Latin artist, bachata singer, and she's here asking, "Hey, I want to meet this artist." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, out of all the calls that come into a newsroom, I had to pick this one up. Where's the emergency?" And then I'm thinking all this to myself. And she tells me, "Oh, sir, I know what you're probably thinking. It's not for me. It's for my 12-year-old sister." And every time I tell the story, I get emotional. You guys don't understand why. "Hey, it's for my 12-year-old sister. You see, she was diagnosed with cancer recently. And I want to make sure we help
You
her
need
out."
to do it again.
And I said, "Okay, let
No,
me
you
see how I
will.
can do this. Let me see how I can do this." I said, "Listen, I'm going to try to help you, but I'm not going to make any promises. And please don't tell her anything." Back then, I didn't know anybody in the music industry, but I needed to make sure I helped this person. So I made as many calls as possible, and finally it happened. I was able to have the meet and greet with the artist and the little girl. What I'm about to show you is the story that went on the air. Unfortunately, it's in Spanish, but I think you guys are gonna get the gist of it. Okay, so let me play the video. Give me 1 second. Are you guys able to see my screen? Okay,
Yes,
and
we
let me know
are.
if you hear, let me know if you hear the audio. Her name is Leslie.
Yep, able to hear the audio.
Leslie nos envió esta petición.
Univision, llévame contigo, por favor.
Ella, que era bailarina, tiene 2 años batallando contra un tumor cerebral que ahora le impide caminar, pero aún así no deja de soñar con el día que conozca a su Romeo.
Les voy a decir de mi enfermedad, cuánto le adoro.
Su madre no para de pedir por un milagro, la cura que aún no existe para la enfermedad.
Qué difícil, pero no pierdo la esperanza ni la fe.
Y con esa misma fe la llevamos hasta el concierto para tratar de cumplir con su sueño terrenal. ¿Ya sabes lo que le vas a decir?
Sí,
¿Qué le vas a decir?
ay Romeo, tienes una cara especialmente.
El tumor le afecta la memoria y Leslie está nerviosa. Nos permitieron llevarla tras bambalinas y allí llegó la artista. Hola Romeo, muchísimas gracias por aceptar esta invitación. Mira, aquí te tenemos una invitada muy especial. Ella es Leslie.
Bien, ¿y usted?
I'm good.
Le mostró cómo lleva su nombre tatuado hasta en sus uñas.
Wow, gracias, mi cielo. What's your favorite song?
Ay, sueño, llévame contigo.
Ah, thank you, sweetie.
Y él le prometió llevarla con él.
I'll take you with me.
Okay, okay.
I'll take you with me on stage.
Le firmó autógrafos, se tomaron fotos y algo no se le olvidó a Leslie.
Un beso.
Pero,
Sellaron su encuentro con un corazón y disfrutó del concierto desde su propio balcón.
I'm so happy. Oh my gosh, thank you.
¿Te dio tu beso?
Nunca lo voy a lavar.
She said at the end, "I'm never gonna wash my face," after the artist kissed her. This is no ordinary artist. He sold out multiple shows at Yankee Stadium, MetLife Stadium, and a lot of other venues. Weeks after that story aired, you know, I called the family and I said, "Hey, how are you?" Waleska was the sister's name. Remember me? It's Bill. And she said, "Oh, how you doing? How you doing? How are you? Oh, great to hear from you." And I said, "Hey, how's Leslie doing?" And she said, she passed away just a few weeks ago. I just recently, my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, is a big Aventura fan now, Romeo Santos. And I took it to the show not too long ago. And then it dawned on me, I should check on the family again. I spoke to the sister last week, and she tells me, you know, up until her last day, Leslie's last day, she kept bragging and talking about that meet and greet. And that's when it dawned on me back then. I said, you know what? Everything that I do going forward needs to have a meaning, right? It needs to help the community. You know, whether it's somebody calling and asking for something, I want to make sure I help them. If there's a breaking story, like for example, there's been stories, I'm gonna tell you another story. There was an incident of a woman who was a victim of domestic violence, and everybody covered it because she was attacked in front of a barber shop, and her husband came in armed with a sharp object and was just stabbing her, right? And it made headlines because, you know, it was caught on video. Man attacks his wife, you know, jealous rage, whatever it was, whatever the headline was, and it made headlines. You know, the saying says, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Well, I'm not a firm believer of that. I think there's a firm message behind all these incidents. So right after the story aired, I called the woman. I found the woman in the hospital, the victim, and I said, "Hi, my name is Bill Tipacti. I'm calling you from Univision. I'd love to help you." And the woman was very reluctant, right, and combative. And she said, "Really? You want to help me? How can you help me?" And I said, "I don't know. You tell me what it is that you need." And she said, "If you really want to help me, I want you to help me get my daughter from the Dominican Republic here so she can take care of me." And you know, I think she was just being daring, right? "Oh, I dare you to do this." And I said, "Okay, I'll help you. It's not gonna be today, but I'm gonna help you." And I made calls and calls and calls. I called congressmen after congressmen. And within a month, we finally made it happen. We did the encounter, and this is every step that we took on the story. You know, when the daughter went to the embassy in the Dominican Republic, and then she came out with the visa, and then when she came to JFK and met, we follow every case. And that's what we did, right? We grabbed that headline and we didn't turn it into a headline. We turned it into something else, right? Where we help people, right? In 2018, I left the newsroom and I was asked to lead the Office of Community Affairs. And that's where my new role began, right? And everything for me is, you know, it's not easy. It's not a bed of roses. It's not, you know, there's challenges along the way. Just when I thought I had the job of my dreams, you know, my boss comes to me and he says, Bill, we have a problem. This is a week after I got hired. And he goes, Bill, we have a problem. I said, well, what's the problem, Robert? And he said, I just got a call from our HR department head. And he says that I'm making a mistake and I'm not making the right hire, that you're not the right hire. What do you think? And I said, oh, well, I like it. I like that woman's opinion. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm going to prove her wrong. And I have. She's no longer with the company. I'm not only just leading the office here, I'm also leading the office in other markets as well. And I think everything that I've been doing here has been replicated, copied in other markets. So a lot of the efforts that I do are born from personal experiences, right? One of my events, and my events as a community empowerment director, meet 4 pillars, and that is education, health, civic engagement, and financial empowerment. And I built a plan of events throughout the year, or throughout the 12 months, and I execute events such as a virtual college fair, a back-to-school effort, health fairs, distribution of toys, distribution of turkeys, water safety campaigns, breast cancer campaigns. I do a civic engagement campaigns all throughout the year, right? But I have to, out of all of them, there's one baby that I always talk about, and that is my virtual college fair, right? I call it Rumbo a la Universidad, which translates path to college. And it comes from the experience that I lived in high school, the one I just shared about my high school guidance counselor, that he told me, hey, you're not cut out for college. Don't bother. Well, you know, those words stuck in my head. So when I was asked to build a community plan, I said, I need to make sure I include in this plan a college event, a college program, one that will help parents and students go to college and understand the process. So I came up with this concept called Contigo Rumbo a la Universidad, which is really a virtual college fair, right? A virtual college fair that brings in colleges and universities, and they have parents and students have a direct engagement with the college, and then they learn about the programs and they learn about everything they need to learn about the whole college process. At the same time, we offer workshops that tell you or help you with, you know, the college process. You know, folks who do not have an immigration status, it attends to them as well. But I think that the key to the event and all of my events is that you need to make sure that there's a takeaway. And then the takeaway for our events are, aside from the information of this particular event, is that we give gift cards. We give away $500 gift cards so the students can begin their college career. We give away laptops. We give away tablets. We give away. We also arrange one-on-one sessions with our Univision talent, whether our local talent or Univision or national talent, right? And the event was born here out of New York, right? We saw that the first year was very successful, and then we expanded it to the DC and Philadelphia market, and we saw that was successful in the second year. And in the third year, I said, you know, hey, I need to make sure I elevate all of my events. So I expanded it to the East Coast. So all the markets of Univision between Miami and New York, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Atlanta, Raleigh, Washington, D.C., and New York, obviously, participated in this virtual college fair, along with universities in these markets, right? And now this college idea, this college plan, is now being replicated in other markets. Last year in November, Texas, 4 markets in Texas did their own version of the virtual college fair. And this year in September, California is going to expand it. It's going to launch their own virtual Contigo Rumbo a la Universidad in 4 markets in California, and they're going to do it in Chicago, and they're also going to do it in Phoenix. And I share this story with Andrew as well. You know, my college, my life came full circle this year because in April, the superintendent of Kearney High School, the school that I went to, my high school, my alma mater, called me and they said, "Hey, Bill, we hear you're doing some good things. I would love for you to come here and talk to the kids." And I said, "Sure, no problem." And then I went, and as I'm looking at the audience, I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a full circle my life's been. You know, here I am talking to these students at the same location, right across the hall from where that guidance counselor said, "Hey, you're not cut out for college. Don't do it." And here I am talking to them. And then in the 4 years that I've been doing this virtual college fair, we've helped 35,000 kids attain college. And I think, you know, that was for me, it was one of those full circle moments that I was like, wow, I guess I'm doing something correct, right? Something all right. I want to make sure that this conversation is engaging. So I'm going to shut up for a little bit and I'll let you guys do the talking. Sarima, you're the host. Let me know when to go.
Yes, I actually, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that video and for sharing these amazing stories. And one of the first questions that I kind of wanted to jump in was, how was your transition between your work as a journalist, starting in the newsroom, into your current role as the Senior Director of Community Empowerment?
Thank you, Sarima, for the question. And I also invite everybody else in the group to please ask questions as well. I love to answer questions. I think it was very smooth, and I think it was very, very smart of my boss who come and got me, because he knew that I had a lot of contacts, right? And one of my mottos in life is that you don't go in life to you don't just build contacts, you have to build relationships, right? And that's what I did in my years in the newsroom. Every day that I would talk to people, it would be not just another contact, but another relationship that I was building, whether it's the mayor's office or the press office, or whether it's the governor or whomever, right? I always make sure that I maintain the relationship. You know, I started talking to folks who were an entry-level position. 2, 5, 10 years later, they're leading the office, right? Or maybe they're elected officials themselves, right? And in that sense, it made my career a lot easier to make sure that when I went from the news to the community efforts, whenever I needed to meet, whenever it was time for me to build a community effort, I just picked up the phone and said, "Hey, how are you, man? It's Bill Tipacti. Hey, how you doing? How have you been?" And it made it a lot easier to build these events, right? Relationships is everything.
Mm-hmm. And as a entry level, whether it was an internship or your first work experience, what were some skills that you took on from those first work experience that you carried with you throughout your entire career?
I'm gonna say that it's important for you to always elevate yourself and your skills, right? Because that's going to push you personally, and you have to be disciplined about it, right? At the same time, I always tell folks, you have to surround yourself with mentors, because they're the ones who are going to be helping you along the way. And those mentors are going to prevent you from making the mistakes that you could be making if you don't have a mentor. I mean, I surrounded myself with a lot of mentors. One of them is Roberto Yanez, who, when I first started, was a news director. He left, and now he's the president and general manager of Univision, the East Coast. He's the one who brought me to lead the Office of Community Affairs, right? He has been my mentor all this time. So when he saw me in the newsroom, he said, "What are you still doing in the newsroom? Come on over. I'm gonna have you lead the Office of Community Affairs." So yeah, to go back to your question, is that make sure that you always challenge yourself, right? When I was a production assistant and all I had to do was do prompter, I said, I don't want to do this all my life. I want to produce. So then, you know, I learned how to produce. And then I went and talked to my boss and said, you know, I can produce. And they gave me the chance. And after I finished producing, then I said, you know, I want to manage. And then, you know, they gave me the opportunity, and I excelled at that. And then they tapped on me and they said, you know, I want you to lead the Office of Community Affairs. Oh, now we need you to lead other markets as well. So yeah, always challenge yourself.
And also kind of taking a step back to kind of your childhood and how you were raised, do you think that both your community or your parents or your cultural background has impacted the way that you discipline yourself or the way that you engage with your current community?
So definitely your upbringing has a lot to do with what you do and how you do it.
Right.
I come from a Peruvian family that, you know, and this is just, I think, every Latino family, where, you know, if you have something, you want to share it. If you have a little something, you want to make sure you send that, you share it back to your folks, back in my case, in Peru, right? Whenever we go to Peru, we take two suitcases, You know, the carry-on is for me, and the 2 suitcases are for my folks over there, right? And that's the upbringing that I've been brought up, and that those skills, those traits are the ones that I bring into my community efforts. You saw the video that I shared about Leslie, right? I want to make sure that I give back. You know, sometimes I don't tell my boss, but I tell folks, you know, I am so lucky that I'm able to help so many people and change people's lives. The company allows me to do it, and I'll just take full advantage of it. I'll use all the resources to be able to help people. But yeah, the upbringing, my family values has helped me to be able to do what I do.
And also too, I know you talked about that guidance counselor that didn't have the most encouraging words to say. So how did you overcome that moment, and how did that challenge further motivate you? And as kind of a general question, what motivates you in general?
I think what motivates me is that, you know, I'm one of those guys that goes into the movie theater and cheers for the underdog.
Right.
I've always considered myself the underdog, right? My stories have given you testament of that. You know, that guidance counselor, you know, I don't wish him anything wrong. I don't wish him anything bad. As a matter of fact, I understand that my brother and my sister had the same experience with him. And I think my brother had it worse because he was pushing him towards the military. And you know, and then years later, I find out that this gentleman became school principal at the high school. But what motivates me is that, you know, I want to make sure I make a difference in life, right? I want to make sure that I not only make my family proud, my daughter, my wife, my parents, I make them proud, and that's what motivates me, right? I want to make sure that that I leave a legacy. When I leave Univision, I leave a legacy that I did something wrong, that I was able to help the community.
And as through your program of specifically helping students on their path to college, how do you think that has strengthened your skills as a mentor, or have you learned anything from your interaction with these students to better yourself as well as a mentor and understanding their perspective as someone who made their own path to college?
That's a great question. You know, in the years that we've selected those gift card winners, I've had to interview them, and you know, and they share their story, and some of those stories are just very emotional, you know, and that's what motivates me. I remember there was one gift card winner that told me, "Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you very much." She was a winner in North Carolina, and this was last year. "Thank you very much. I'm gonna dedicate this to my dad. He recently had a stroke, and he's bound to a wheelchair. And I'm gonna make him proud. I promised him that I would finish college." So when you hear the stories, you're like, I'm just doing very little. I want to make sure that they do more, right? And that's why I do this, right? What motivates me is those stories. I want to make sure that I change people's lives, at least 1 or 2, 3, a couple dozens, but we want to make sure we change people's lives. That's what Univision is about. And the community expects that from Univision. That's why we do what we do.
Are there any questions that interns would like to ask, whether it's in the chat or through the mic? Well, I actually have another question. How did you get your first job at Univision? What was the interview process like, or what was the internship process like?
So I did my internship in '93, and I actually did 2 back-to-back internships at Univision, one in the fall and then one in the winter. And then I was hoping that at the end of the second internship, it would lead into a job, and it didn't. I was very sad about that. Then I finished college, and then I went and found the easiest job I found was working at a mail facility at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I remember it was sorting mail there, hating it. And then my manager said, "Hey, listen, you have a phone call." And it's at the other end, it was the news director at the time. And he said, "Hey, Bill, we have a job opportunity here at Univision. Are you available to talk?" And I said, "Sure." And I went to the office the next day, and they told me about the opportunity of being a production assistant. And I said, "Sure, I'm interested." And he said, "All right, when can you start?" I said, "Tomorrow," knowing that I had a full-time job. And I said, "I'll start tomorrow." And then as I was walking away, he stopped me and said, "Hey, aren't you going to ask me how much you're going to make?" And I said, "No, I just want to work at Univision."
Mhm.
So it was just easy, but I think I had left a legacy already throughout because of the 2 internships that I had done. So they knew that my work ethics. So it was just an easy phone call that I needed to make. It's sadly, and I guess fortunate for me, it's been the only company I've been working with. It's going to be 30 years next year, and I'm happy to be working here at Univision. I'm happy to be in this family.
That's amazing. And is your current role or was your previous role your dream role in college, or has a lot changed between your time at Seton Hall and your time at Univision?
So this current job of community empowerment director, I guess has been transformed through the years. It was really originally it was more of a job of a press person, and before I joined the office, it was more of that. So the office would be in charge of doing press releases, attend banquets, and maybe make donations here and there. That's practically it. Oh, and then maybe do some FCC reports. When I joined the office, I made sure that there were community efforts, there were grassroots events that would put us out in the community and that we would help firsthand the community directly. And so in that sense, the role has changed. I never really envisioned myself doing this when I was in college. I really just wanted to be a journalist, but I'm still a journalist. I'm still a journalist at hand. I approach things with a news mind, but with a community sense.
And I remember that you discussed initially being a public relations major. So do you think it was a big gap between public relations and journalism, or do you see the tie between the two majors?
I think there's a big correlation between both of them. I mean, I'm doing public relations every day.
Right.
So, and like I mentioned, it's part of my model. You know, you don't come to work to make contacts, you go to work to make relationships.
And I understand that most of our interns are college students. So how was your college experience, and how do you think it prepared you throughout your entire career, whether it was the connections that you made, the friends that you made, the professors that you met along the line? How was that college experience?
I had a great college experience, but college prepares you on a theory, right? It prepares you on the books, but it doesn't really prepare you for the real world, right? The problems that you may have at work, not at work, but you know the task at hand. That is something that you have to live and you have to experience, and you have to find a way to overwhelm it, and you know to get better at it, to find a solution to the problem, right? And that only comes with experience, right? So college was great in that it was just preparing you in the courses, but as far as actually doing the job, there's nothing that prepares you for that. You actually have to just do it, right? But I think what's important for that is that internships. I can't stress enough the importance of an internships, because it allows you to get a feeling for what you're going to be doing. You know, you don't want to, you know, spend 4 years in school and then discover that, hey, maybe that's not the right career I selected, right? So yeah, internships are very, very important.
And I also kind of wanted to ask about Path to College. How did that program start? Like, what was the, I guess, sparking moment to introducing the virtual college fairs? And how did you go about collecting either a group of people that shared your vision or would further expand the program to where it's at today?
Like anything else, it was an uphill battle.
Right.
You know, when I proposed it to leadership, they didn't really believe in it. They said, a college fair, there's so many of them. And then I'm like, none of them are in language. None of them are in Spanish. And then the pandemic happened. And then we had to pivot, you know, we had to adjust and said, you know what, well, we can't do it in person. Now we're gonna have to do it virtually. And I think it's worked best, because when you do it in person, you know, you're gonna do it in one day, and you're going to be able to connect with maybe 800 students, maybe 1,000 at the most in that one time. Versus doing it virtually, you could do it, well, we normally do it on a 5-day event, right? It's a 5-day event throughout 5 days. And then you're able to have it virtually, which means that you're gonna be able to connect with more people virtually, right? And then you're gonna open it to other markets, right? And that's the advantage of having it virtually. How did it happen? I shared it earlier. It happened at a personal experience. I saw that there are college fairs that do not focus on kids who may not have an immigration status, right? So I want to make sure that within our community, there's all sorts of scenarios, right? There's the students who can apply for financial aid, and there are those who cannot, right? I want to make sure that we help all of them, right? Because they really depend on us, on Univision, to be able to help them, educate them, empower them in these efforts and education efforts.
And do you think that this is one of like the most rewarding parts of working for Univision, the ability to be able to make these connections back into your community, specifically at Kearney? Because I also saw that recently that Kearney students, like the high school students, visited Univision. So like not only how rewarding is it, but also to like how has your connection to the high school also kind of impacted the way that they view Univision as not only a company, but I guess kind of a family and environment that they would potentially want to work in.
So the Kearney experience has been a reminder to stay close to your roots, right? Kearney as itself wasn't as Peruvian as it is right now.
Right.
So going back to high school, it sort of opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, things have changed. There's a lot more need now than there was back then. So I want to make sure I help out that community, give back when you can. In that sense, it brought me back to Kearney High School. And as you mentioned, that connection prompted the opportunity to be able to bring in some students. The high school has a production facility, a production class, where students are learning about broadcasting. Right. And they have their own production studio. And when the opportunity happened to be able to visit a facility like Univision, I jumped right at it and I said, would you guys like to come? And they loved it. And actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to share that video of that experience of them visiting us. And that just happened, I think, last week. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share that video.
All right.
Welcome to KHS Broadcasting. Yesterday, our class went to a trip to Univision, and this is what some students have to say about it.
Univision was so cool. I have never been in a TV studio. It was definitely inspiring.
It was extremely intriguing, to see the processes happening live in front of me. It was very insightful towards the industry and all.
It was very welcoming, and it was such a great opportunity being able to see the way that filming and production works.
It was fun because I got to be around people who also had the same interests, and they taught us a lot of stuff there.
Fun. It was very enjoyable getting to see all the stuff that I never thought I would be able to see, all the behind the scenes. It was just very enjoyable.
It was really fun because I got to see the behind the scenes of what it's like in real life, of the radios or news, and to see how people work together to accomplish the final products.
Having the students get to tour the Univision studios yesterday was such a great experience for them. They've been working so hard this year on many different video projects, newscasts, music videos, scenery creation projects, and seeing them get to see a practical sense of all the stuff they've been preparing for, all the things they've been learning in a real-time professional environment was such a cool experience for them.
Shout out to Kearney High School, que está aquí conmigo. Make some noise, guys, make some noise.
Yeah!
It inspired me to work harder and be more passionate about it, because it is something that I would like to do in the future.
Gracias, Univision.
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 And that's very rewarding because you were waking up the eyes of future broadcasters.
Right.
It was
I know,
really
I
nice
saw
to see.
that video and I was like, oh, I'm so jealous of them. I wish I had an opportunity like that. So I thought that
It's
was
never too late. I'm just a phone call away. If anybody in this group wants to visit Univision, I actually would prefer to do it in a group. So just give me a call, Andrew. Maybe you could help me set this up.
Yes, that would be amazing.
We'll have a field trip, Andrew.
All right.
Right, I'm going for sure.
I'm gonna pick on some of the folks that are here. Juliana, I see you smiling while visiting Univision.
I mean,
Juliana
yeah,
is a
I would
fellow
love.
alum. Go ahead, Juliana.
Yes, first of all, it's an honor to speak to you. My grandma loves watching Univision, and I'm also a Carney High graduate, so I really do feel a connection with you. I actually have a question to ask you, if you don't mind me.
Not at all.
Out. So when you come up to do like these things on your own, like giving back to your community instead of like reporting on big news events, what do you think is the best way you go about proposing this to your superiors to give you the green light to go ahead?
I'm very lucky that I have their full support because they know what I do. They know that there's going to be a good intent. And then I think the intent is that I want to make sure that I encourage, I empower students to be able to reach their best, right? And I think it's through these sessions, through these conversations that I'm able to do that, right? I mean, at one point, I was an intern myself, right? And I always wanted to surround myself with folks that would guide me along the way. And I think these sessions are those opportunities. But it only works if it works two ways, right? So I really encourage you guys to ask me questions. Whatever it is that you want to ask me, ask me. Brianna, I think Brianna's itching to ask me something.
Yeah, like I also grew up watching Univision, so it's pretty crazy to meet someone who works behind the scenes and everything. I know you said that like you switched your major and like you were thankful to like find out that this was the right path and you were able to like work and find a job that you like to do. Like what was that process of? Like how did you like have the confidence to be like, okay, like maybe I should do this for me instead of like I know a lot of kids, they try to like do things to please their parents or to like find a good job in order to have stability. So how did you like do something to work towards your dream specifically?
You know, I'm gonna just say you gotta trust yourself, right? If there's something you like, whether it's video games or sports, just go for that, right? You need to make sure that you understand your inner self and you listen to the inner self that says, hey, this is what I want to do, right? Once you're settled on that, then you go ahead and go for the goal, go for that goal, right? I didn't know that Univision was going to open the door the way it did. I was just focused in news, and when you talk about Univision, well, in my case, it was just news, but I didn't know that there was a whole entertainment side to it, right? And that entertainment side to it has led me into, you know, meetings with Shakira and Ricky Martin and all these Latin artists that, you know, for some folks to be like, oh my God, I was just there to work, you know. It's like, Mr. Martin, could you please stand here? We're going to be doing interviews here. You know, none of this. Can I get a photo? Oh, no, I didn't have the chance, right? It opened the doors to be, you know, attend some Copa America games or some big soccer matches, right? It has opened the doors to be able to have meetings with the White House or the governor's office in New Jersey or in New York. So it's opened the door to a whole bunch of things. But, you know, you mentioned something about, you know, policing or being nervous. You're always going to be nervous. I mean, getting into this space right now was nervous, you know. Not being nervous is not human, right? I think the only ones who don't get nervous are robots, and maybe even then get nervous, right? But you have to just make sure that you're able to control those nerves, right? That's the only way you're gonna get ahead. So
Well, thank you so much.
no problem.
Jessica just asked a question in the chat. She asked, how was your experience as a Latino in the college environment?
It's a great question. Any Seton Hall students or graduates here? No? Okay. You know, Seton Hall has invited me back a few times. And the last time that I went, I found the same issue that I found when I was there originally. And that is that they're not doing enough to accommodate the Latino students, the few Latino students that they have, right? And I'm like, when things are going to change? So they asked me to help out in that sense, and I'll be happy to help. But I'm like, wow, man, I graduated in 1995. It's 2024. We're still in the same boat. So to answer your question, it was challenging because there weren't a lot of Latinos on campus, right? But I didn't change. I mean, I was Latino, I was Peruvian, I ate my meals the way I ate them, arroz con bistec, frijoles y maduros, mi lomo saltado, mi ceviche. I didn't change. And actually, I invited my classmates to my culture, and they accepted it, just don't change yourself, man. Jessica, any questions? I'm just picking on people
So
today.
I
Sorry.
just want to say, because Jessica did I don't know if you can see this, but for the recording, because I don't think the chats come in. So she, in response to what you said about your experience at Seton Hall, she attends Oberlin in Ohio, and she's going to be living in a Latino dorm next semester. So they're making progress there for sure.
Oh, great. Great. Sorry, I've been skipping on reading the chats here. I want to make sure I read
All right,
everybody's
we're
faces.
keeping our eye on those for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
So I guess I have a couple questions if I can.
Sure.
So obviously you seized opportunities as they presented themselves over and over and over again, and you identified paths to take. So a lot of that came within. But along the way, I would imagine you had setbacks. You talked about that HR person who told your boss you weren't the right person, but in the moment, can you describe a couple of the more significant, or at least one of the more significant challenges you had to rise above? Because it's easy to look back on one's career and celebrate all the great things you've done, but when you're in the moment, it doesn't ever feel quite that easy. So would love to hear what you have to say about that.
You stumped me. I don't have anything that I could share that comes to mind that was, other than what I've already shared, that was sort of like an obstacle. But like anything else, I gotta prepare. I mean, something not as big that I remember there was a Hispanic celebration event where Governor Murphy was a big guest, and we were joining forces with Univision. So it was the governor's office and Univision was putting together a Hispanic heritage event. And it just so happened at the last minute, the president of Univision could not attend the event, and he was supposed to give some big remarks. And guess who had to represent the company? Me. And I got a heads up on that, I don't know, maybe half hour before. And, here you are being introduced by the governor of New Jersey, and you have to give a speech and represent the company. And then right away, I just took pen to paper and just pulled myself to a corner and just wrote a couple of things that I needed to say and then deliver them. But man, was I nervous that moment, because, to be able to be introduced by the governor and then, and have to speak to in front of a few hundred people. Yeah, it's something that I am prepared to do, but I would like to get some more notice. Right? At that moment, I didn't, but it goes with the business.
Phil, I have a question for you.
Yes.
One of the things we talk about throughout the 11 plus internship is, and you mentioned the value of connecting with a mentor, right? And building your network and how important that is. Students are often intimidated about the fact that they've got to develop this network, right? Or they think of it in terms of, I'm asking for a job, or it's an uncomfortable conversation. And you said it perfectly, that it's just really about developing relationships. So what advice would you give the interns as they're starting their internships? And many of them just started these internships in the last few weeks. What advice would you give them for building and seeking out mentors and building that, those relationships that are going to be so important to them?
So the word or the act of relationship, or building a relationship, has to do a lot with it. And the relationship goes on beyond the professional relationship. You can go into an office, right? And you could be talking to the person who you don't know what that person does, right? Because you just met that person. You're just talking to that person. You barely know their first name. It could be that that person could be the CEO, yet you're thinking that the person is just a regular employee. What I'm saying is that you need to be respectful of who you talk to, because you just never know who you're going to be talking to, right? And be able to be yourself in these conversations, right? And if the opportunity arises, just be upfront about what it is that you want. without having to be disrespectful. I think respect has to do a lot with the conversation. But again, go in there with the understanding that, you know, you need to be able to build a relationship. That is very important. I learned that while working at the assignment desk in the newsroom. You know, you just never knew who you're going to be talking to. One day they could be in an entry-level position, and the next day you could be at an executive position, right? And that's helped me out a big time. I want to share this story because in my effort with the virtual college fair, you know, I failed to mention this, that this year, I always mention that I need to elevate these events every year. This year, we had the participation of the White House in our virtual college fair, Rumbo a la Universidad. And it was a great accomplishment. Last year when I met with them, the White House said, you know, Bill, we understand you're doing this college event. We'd like to hear more about it. So we set up a meeting, and then there was the Office of the Secretary of Education. And they loved the event so much that they wanted to hire the person that puts it together for me. They did, I think. And then they were participating in it. And I think it was just, the timing was great because it was that week that the White House announced these new changes for FAFSA, and then also the debt forgiveness that was announced early this year. So we sort of broke the news in our virtual college fair in that effort. So yeah, it's a great event.
Very cool. So just looking at the clock, we have a few minutes left. Sarima, you might have a few more questions, but if anybody in the audience, anyone at all wants to ask anything else, feel free to chime in. But Sarima, back to you.
Yes, I think one of the main questions obviously would be, what advice would you give to all of the interns? What is advice that you got potentially that has continued to resonate with you? And what is just advice in general that you think everyone can benefit from?
I'm going to tell you this phrase that someone told me when I came to this role. When I came to the role of Community Empowerment Director, my boss sent me away to shadow two folks that have been doing it for quite some time. And it was the Community Empowerment Director in Phoenix and the Community Empowerment Director in Los Angeles. And when I met and shadowed the person in Phoenix, he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, hey, you're going to do well. You're going to get this job. You're going to do it well, but you're going to do it your way. Don't follow what I'm teaching you. You need to do it your own way. And I didn't understand what he meant by that. I didn't understand it. And it wasn't until 2 years later that I called him back and I said, hey, Gerardo, now I understand what you mean. You know, you gave me the tools. You showed me how to do things. But at the end, I did it based on my own personal experience. You know, the virtual college fair, it was never done anywhere else, but it was based on my personal experience. The health fair was what I saw here in the community that was needed. You know, the tree lighting event, I saw that there was a need for that, right? All those events were done in my own way. So what I'm saying is that seize the moment, take advantage of the opportunity, and do it your own way, you know? Sure, you can copy, but try to do it in a unique manner.
Right. That's phenomenal advice. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else?
I want to share this one last story, if I may. One of the organizations that I work with in the education effort, their name is LUCA, Latino College Access. And they're based out of Westchester. I don't know if you guys heard of them, but if you do, look them up, LUCA, L-U-C-A. And the way I was introduced to them, there was a video that went viral. And it was this teenager that recorded himself as he was reading his acceptance letter to college. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching the video, and I see this kid, you know, reading his emails, and he's got his parents around him. And he breaks down crying. Mm. And then he just looks up and he goes, I got accepted. Mm. And then his parents hug him. And then at the end, it says he was accepted to Harvard. Mm. And then I looked up who helped them, and it was LUCA. And LUCA, the organization, helped them because the kid had so much potential that he wasn't aiming at Harvard or Yale or any of these Ivy League schools. He was aiming at CUNY or any local school. He actually wasn't even thinking of college. He just said, you know, I'm going to please my parents. I'm going to go to college. But Luca found the potential in him and said, you're more than that. We're going to help you. And they did. And then what happened after that was just incredible. So and I think we all have, his name is Kevin. I think we all have the potential of Kevin if we just apply ourselves, if we just find the opportunity and just take the risk.
All right. It's about never selling yourself short, like knowing what you're capable, and when other people see that, you can go anywhere from there.
Well said, Sarim.
Well, thank you both so very much. That was, I can't believe it, an hour passed in the blink of an eye. That was such a great conversation. Bill, thank you. And Sarima, you did not disappoint in your ability to do the interview. So thank you both so much. Bill, where I am going to see if I can get a little group together to come visit you at Univision, because that I think would be a cool experience. And so with that, I guess we can wrap it up. And thank you so much. And we've got another to the interns and mentors who are with us. We've got another call coming up in about a month. So stay tuned for the next one. And thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. If you need to look me up, I'm on LinkedIn, Bill Tipacti,
Thank you.
Bill, last name Tipacti, Tipacti. Take
Thank
care,
you so
everybody.
much.
Thank